Welcome to the Stranger Than Fiction podcast. I'm Chase.
And I'm Adam. Also, welcome to 2019 and welcome to Season 2.
Season 2.
I enjoyed the break, but I'm happy to be back arguing with you every week, Chase.
I found myself down in the basement just sort of talking to a computer screen, hoping that you would sign on. So I'm glad to be back, too.
You could have texted me. I would have signed on.
I have a bunch of episodes that I've recorded by myself that you can edit if you'd like.
Nice. I'm just dying to do that. I feel like we're biting off a pretty big topic here to start the new year, but I'm really excited about it. Time.
Yeah, exciting. It definitely is a big topic, and I'm going to try not to ramble on for 4 hours to make sure that we can stay within the time parameters of the episode. No pun intended, but yeah, it's a cool topic.
How many time puns are we going to have in this episode?
Probably as many times as we said, scared or creepy in the Halloween episodes. I would say maybe more than that.
You're probably right. So time is like one of those things that makes my head hurt if I think too much about it. And it's a lot more than obviously just the ticking of a clock or the pages of a calendar. To kick off Season 2, we wanted to try and tackle some of those things.
Yeah, I think when I became a dad, time became a lot more relevant to me. I don't want to die because of Ellie, so I feel like I'm much more cognizant of time in my old age now because of the kiddo. So
yeah, and I think we'll probably talk about some reasons about why you feel that way. But before we get started, though, I did want to talk about a new initiative that we're starting here with Season 2. We're calling it Cause of the Week. So basically, you can become a Patreon supporter of Stranger Than Fiction, and 100% of the proceeds after our minimal production costs will be divided and donated to a new charitable cause each week that's related to our episode topic. We've got 3 different levels of support: Committed Stranger, Strange Samaritan, and Patron Saint of Strange. We would be honored if you would consider supporting the show and a variety of charitable causes with us through Patreon.
Yeah, to me, that's kind of exciting. It makes a little bit more of a purpose for this rambling that we do every week. It gives me a little bit more joy in knowing that potentially we could hand over some money to somebody that needs it. So
yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, and hopefully everyone that's listening is also interested and wants to help support. You can learn more about our Patreon by visiting patreon.com/STFtalk. Now, so this week's topic is time, like we said. So we have selected the Alzheimer's Association for this week. They are the leading voluntary health organization in Alzheimer's care, support, and research. Their mission is to eliminate the disease through advancement in research, care, and support. If you want to learn more about them, you can on their website, alz.org. All right, sorry for that little commercial, but
it's needed.
You ready to get started, Chase?
Yeah, let's roll.
All right, so as humans, obviously we are keenly aware of time and have developed like an obsession with measuring and tracking it. Probably because it's one of our most valuable and limited resources. Mm-hmm. We have tons of expressions about time. I'm sure you can think of a couple. You want me to name some of them?
Like time waits for no man?
Yeah, stuff like that. So we've got
okay.
On borrowed time, bide my time, time heals all wounds, don't waste your time, time of my life, time flies when you're having fun, it's about time, long time no see, once upon a time, only a matter of time, there's no time like the present, time is money, time hangs heavy, time will tell, time's a wasting for old time's sake.
Time after time.
Yeah, there's lots of songs as well about time.
Yeah.
There's also another one that, is fitting because so like you and I happen to be in the right place at the right time to become BFFs.
Oh, that's true. And if we lived in a different time, we might still be BFFs, like Civil War days. But we probably fight by each other for the North.
But yeah, so we've become kind of obsessed with time as humanity, essentially. And again, there's lots of reasons why. But as well, at the same time, technology has advanced to the point that now we can track precisely what we're doing with our time, right? So smartwatches will tell us how many active minutes we've had or how much REM sleep we got last night. Our phones will tell us how much time we've used them and conveniently break that time down into different categories. Is that creepy, or do you think that's cool?
No, I love waking up in the morning and looking at my Fitbit and it telling me that I supposedly slept for 7 hours, but actually only slept for 2.5.
So you're saying it's wrong?
No, I'm saying that my sleep is shit. But
Okay,
yeah,
we don't,
I measure.
we don't
I measure,
need to get back into that.
I
If you
measure
want to
everything.
learn about Chase's sleep, go back and listen to episode 14, Dreams, and you'll hear all about Chase's sleep or lack thereof.
No, but I like things measured. I like trying to make more time in my day. I mean, I know it's not possible, but it feels like if you can be more efficient and measure things with time, that it feels like you can stretch out your day more, and that's exciting to me.
It's because time is a limited resource. We only get so much, so yeah, you want to make it last, right?
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, at least for me, I mean, time seemed to move differently. I mean, things were slower, less hurried. You're not yet aware of how limited time is. And we can't really conceptualize that someday that will run out of time. Time seems slow and endless.
Wah, wah.
And you just have this urge for it to move faster so you can drive or be done with school or drink alcohol legally.
Cheers.
But somewhere along the way, it changes and we wake up and wonder, what have we done with all of our time?
Oh my, this is so philosophical.
So this concept of the perception of time is definitely something that I want to talk some more about, but maybe we can start with some of the historical measurements of time first.
Ooh, let's go for it.
So do you know what the study and science of time is called? Time measurement, rather?
Timology.
No, that would be incorrect. Good guess,
Okay.
though. It's actually horology.
Horology.
And that's H-O-R, not W-H-O-R, Chase.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
And there's records of humans tracking the moon cycles as like a calendar as long as like 30,000 years ago. So again, humanity obsessed with time. People measured time using sun movements as well with sundials as well for quite a bit of time. Do you know anything about the Babylonians?
No.
So they were the ones that originally developed the system that we use today, revolving around this number 60. So 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, blah, 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 blah.
Interesting.
Their culture was like obsessed with the number 60. And,
Why?
well, because number 60 is a cool fucking number.
I mean, that's all. Much like time, the number 60 being a cool fucking number is relative as well, right?
So it's the only number, or it's the smallest number that's divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And it's also the lowest common denominator, or lowest common multiple of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as well. So it's like,
Is that why they chose it, or you're just giving out math facts?
I'm giving out math facts about why 60 is cool.
Okay.
But
All right.
their number system that revolved around 60 was another fun name that you'll probably like, similar to horology. It was called sexagesimal system.
Sexagesimal. That's the only never mind. That joke is going to fall flat.
So yeah, so we're talking about horology and sexagesimal systems on this episode.
Well, hopefully I don't have to repeat that second one.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been lots of different ways that we've tracked and measured time over history. There's been lots of famous, smart people that have spent a lot of time thinking or studying time. Galileo did a lot of shit with pendulums. Newton did. He's got some like laws about time. Einstein obviously did a lot with time. His most famous theory of relativity relies heavily on time because it has the speed of light.
The one thing that I do know about time is from Einstein. That's really the only. I mean, everybody else is sort of below me to study, but Einstein is definitely up there. And he's the same sort of caliber of brain.
Are you saying you don't know who Galileo or Newton is?
I know both of those people. Galileo was he was part of the Queen, right? And then Newton.
Why do you say he was part of Queen?
Don't they have the song about him? Galileo, Galileo. I thought that was them saying like, "Hey, it's your turn to sing."
No.
And then-
No.
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 Okay. And then yeah, Newton. He was the one that invented figs.
Cookies. Putting figs inside of a cookie.
We're off to a great start.
So again, lots of different ways that we've measured time over history. Lots again, the obsession with time started early.
Jeff Bezos has invested a tremendous amount of money in for a forever clock.
What's a forever clock?
Sorry, it's a 10,000 year clock. It's a special clock designed to be a symbol, an icon for long-term thinking. So he's not using it in the true sense of time, keeping time. He's using it in the sense of look into the future and think about things into the future. But I digress. Keep going.
So again, lots of obsession with time over the years. And, we've kind of talked a little bit or alluded to this concept of how time is kind of from a matter of perspective, right? It's all about how you perceive it, and it's not like a fixed thing. Like it can be your brain can perceive it differently depending on the circumstances.
And your brain could perceive it differently from another person's brain as well.
Yeah, and your brain will perceive it differently than, say, a fly or some other animal's brain as well.
I think I'm pretty much on the same level as a fly, but
I don't think so.
I understand the point.
I mean, this perception of time is actually a pretty highly debated and largely not fully understood area of psychology. But most psychologists believe that there is a neurological system controlling the human perception of time, but it's not associated with sensory pathways. So it's really like a complicated system in the brain. So basically, time perception is kind of like a sense, but it's not like their other senses that touch and taste stuff, because you can't directly perceive time. It has to essentially be reconstructed, if you will, in some way by the brain.
This is already too complicated for me.
What do you mean it's too complicated for you?
I thought I had several notes on Timex watches that I thought we were going to talk about.
Timex watches? Yeah. Casio digital watch.
I got the wrong theme. I got the wrong notes of this episode.
You wanted to do like a history of watches?
Yeah, I thought we were going to rate watches for 2017, but or 2019. Jesus Christ, what year is it?
Your perception of time is a little bit skewed there.
It is. Yeah, I see time a lot differently than people.
So one of the ways that your brain can perceive time differently is based on the information that it's taking in. Okay, so if the brain is receiving a lot of familiar information, so if you're doing something that you do all the time, so it's not really taking in a lot of new information, the brain can process it really quickly. So your perception of time is much shorter than if you were taking in a lot of new experiences. The brain takes longer to process a lot of this new information, and which makes your perception of time extended and drawn out. So basically, the extra processing time makes time feel elongated.
Okay.
So essentially, more familiar the task, the less new information the brain needs to process.
The quicker you can process it.
And the more quickly time seems to pass.
Got it.
So, like if you're like an adult and you have a established routine, you'd get up, you take a shower, take a shit, brush your teeth, go to work, come home, go to bed. Like that's your routine. Your days are going to like feel like they're flying by versus if you were getting up and you were doing something new and exciting every day.
Then it would seem slower.
Yeah. Your days would feel longer. You don't find this to be true in what you're doing?
No, I would say that's fair. However, I would say that if you're trying something new, don't you think sort of like the excitement and the anticipation of that trying something new sort of speeds up time to get to that point, and then while you're doing the activity, it sort of slows down while it's happening?
Yeah, so you're kind of talking about two different things here. I'm talking about in the moment when you're trying that new stuff. You're talking about like that anticipation leading up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like two different things, but
would you agree with that though? I mean,
for me, it's like if I've got something that I know that I'm like excited about in the future, that takes forever to get to. If it's something I'm dreading, that's like here tomorrow, man. It's like, bam, done.
Yeah.
It comes quick.
Well, maybe our perceptions are different though. Could be.
True. But yeah, I was talking about more if you're in that actual moment, doing something new or something routine, basically. Another potential factor is attention. So the more attention that you put onto a task or event, the longer it seems to take. I think the classic example is like waiting for a pot of water to boil, right? If you sit there and you look at the water and watch it, it's going to feel like it takes forever for that shit to boil.
Mm-hmm.
So the more attention that you put on tasks or events, the more drawn out it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about making pasta, if I don't ever look at the water because
Exactly.
it makes me feel like I can make the pasta a lot quicker.
Yeah, you put the water on and then you go do something else because it'll be boiling much quicker that way. Or at least you feel like it is.
Perception.
So there were some psychological tests done around this concept, and basically you take the same picture, like the picture of Chase's face, and
Beautiful.
You show it to a bunch of random people again and again, mixed in with a bunch of other pictures. So pictures of Adam, pictures of baboons, pictures of gorillas, and basically the different pictures are perceived by the observer to be shown longer than the picture of Chase if you keep mixing in pictures of Chase, because they get used to the picture of Chase. They don't pay as much attention to the picture of Chase, and so they conceptually feel like they're not seeing it as long, even though you would show them at the same amount of time.
Yeah, I feel like there was a there was a light test that was similar. Do you know about that?
Yeah, or which one are you thinking of? There's a couple different ones that I've seen about. Yeah.
So there was, and I'm going to paraphrase this and probably screw it up a little bit, but it was a light test basically where they would ask volunteers to click a button, and then a few seconds later, a light would turn on. And then they would do that, and then the scientists would sort of shorten the time of the light. After 10 or so tries, the volunteers began to see the flash immediately after they pressed the button, even though there was no time change.
Yeah, because they were expecting it. And so
Correct.
It felt like it was, okay, I push it and then bam, it's on, versus kind of getting into that rhythm about what's going to happen and that type of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing that you were talking about with the pictures, where you get so used to it that your brain just says this is gonna happen, or this is what it is, and basically perceives it for you and does all the work before it's even happening. It's processing all of that stuff before it's even happening.
And
it was amazing to me.
Yeah, I mean, all of this shit just like I said at the beginning, it hurts my brain to think about it too much. Time should be like a fixed thing, right? I mean, like it shouldn't feel as different as it does. I don't know.
And
it's hard to explain, and it definitely hurts my brain to think about too much.
And what gets freakier about the story? So, just to summarize, they started, clicked a button. A few seconds later, a light would appear. And then they would click a button, no change, but the volunteers would say, oh, they saw the light. If this was 10 seconds, they'd see it in 7 seconds comparatively, and then 5 seconds. And then eventually it got so convoluted in their brain that they reported seeing the light before the light would even come on, which is just it's just a total adjustment of time and space in your brain and the firings of your brain and everything. It's fucking wild.
Maybe this is the key to time travel. That you're solving it right here. They were time traveling. Maybe
they were clicking a button and traveling through time.
Maybe
7 seconds into the future.
Exactly. But I mean, the brain is just crazy. Like that's so insane to me.
Well, I think all of perception is if you really think about perception as a whole, and not just from a time perspective, perception as a whole is strange because really, you could see the earth one way and a person could see the earth another way. We have no sort of baseline as to what the smell of toast smells like for you comparatively to me. We don't even that's just it's perception from one person to another for everything. Time is just sort of piled on to the other senses that are basically just other perceptions as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, but you're talking about the smell of toast. And I'm saying that basically this perception of time is essentially like another sense that similar to touch or taste or whatever. So
yeah,
it's very similar. I would agree for sure.
Yeah, it's strange. And your perception of an hour might be different from my perception. It is a...
Well, it's absolutely going to differ depending on what you're doing is what I'm saying.
But it is such a this is what we could literally just go back and forth on this exact thing for 40 minutes. just how mind-boggling that thought is.
So for me, a perfect example of this, it's probably not going to resonate with the listeners, but sorry. If you think back to when we were recording the first episode, okay? I felt like, so we were talking, and I felt like we had been talking forever because we'd never done this before. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We still don't really know what the fuck we're doing, but we really didn't know what the fuck we were doing then. And I felt like we were talking forever. We look at the time, and we've been talking for 30 minutes. Okay.
Yep.
Now we start into an episode. We start talking. I feel like we're barely getting into it, and we're already at 30 minutes. That perception of time is just completely different doing this same event just because of how, I guess, closer to routine it has become, at least in my brain. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
I feel like I've been down here for 4 hours already. But I mean, that's true. And I think we actually made that point, like when we were recording the first episode of like, this is going to be like 3 hours. We have to stop. And it was like 17 minutes. Like I felt like
exactly.
like I felt like Jodie Foster in Contact, where like she's been gone for like 16 years, and it was like just like 4 minutes in her life. I was like, this is going to be the longest podcast of all time, and it was 17 minutes.
Exactly. So I mean that whole perception of time is just, I mean, and again, it really depends on what you're doing and that new information or new experience that the brain is taking in.
Yeah.
Another difference relative to perception is different animals. So we've been talking about humans, but there is increasing evidence that shows that animals' metabolism or their metabolic rate does directly affect the way that they perceive time. So generally, larger animals like humans and whatever have slower metabolisms. Okay.
I like how you couldn't think of another animal, like big animals like humans and whatever.
So humans or elephants or
Okay, yeah.
Gorillas.
Couldn't think of one other animal.
But we have slower metabolisms than smaller animals, and time passes relatively quickly for us. But if you think about a small animal like a rabbit or a fly, which has a really fast metabolism, they actually, again, there's lots of evidence that is showing this now, that is saying that they experience time more slowly. So they can perceive more events in the same period of time than a larger animal with a slower metabolism.
So is that like the same thing with like dog years? Like do dogs perceive time differently because they only live they have like 7 of our years to 1 of theirs? Is that a different?
No, this would be saying that that the dog is smaller, so it has a faster metabolism than you, so it would experience time more slowly. Yes, but it's not. I don't think it's exactly what you're saying. But if you think about like a fly, so what is your success rate at killing a fly with a fly swatter?
100%.
Bullshit.
It's probably closer to the other end of the spectrum,
or
about 0%.
Or how about if you were trying to kill that fly with your hand?
No, I don't have a fly swatter, so it's always a hand. But I also know a little trick to kill a fly. But I mean, it's a low rate of success to kill the fly.
Why is that?
Because I feel like when my hand comes down, although that I think, and this might blow your mind, Adam, so hang on to your britches a little bit.
All right.
But as my hand is coming down at a high rate of speed, from my perspective, from the fly's perspective, it's like, oh shit, this gigantic bear paw is coming down on me in like 3 years. I better fly away. Yeah, exactly. Like
slow
that
motion.
weird face that you're making. Yeah, it's very slow motion to the fly. So the fly has the ability to get away because it seemingly is not as scared of my hand because it's coming at them slower.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% what I'm saying. The fly, because its metabolism is faster, is able to perceive more events in the same amount of time. So it's experiencing you thinking you're moving at a really high rate of speed, but it's basically like that bullet scene in The Matrix where, Neo's all like dodging bullets and stuff. It's like that, like slow. They experience it like in that slow motion.
Yeah, but I don't. How does that tie to the metabolic rate? Like I don't understand how those two things are tied together.
It's like a evolutionary thing because these small animals are typically prey to larger animals, so they need to be very cognizant and aware and reactive of what's happening around them. Otherwise, they get eaten.
Okay, I guess I'll go with that. I mean, I don't understand how the metabolic, like, I guess I'm just naive and consider the metabolic rate to be like how quickly you process food.
How quickly you turn food into poop.
Yeah, but
So, like,
I'm
if you
probably
eat some
wrong.
corn, how quickly till you see that shit in your poop?
I mean, it depends on what I ate. It depends on what I ate before that, homie. I mean, the corn isn't the nexus. It's the it's whatever.
There we
whatever
go.
happens before that.
First nexus of the season. Mark it down.
Whatever.
I say corn because it's like the most recognizable thing, right? It's
Yeah.
you can directly tell. Oh, yep, that was that meal from 12 hours ago or whatever.
I'm grossed out by this episode already. No, I mean, I think the take home to that is, I mean, perception of everything, including time, differs from person to person, from situation to situation. And I think one of the coolest sort of takeaways for time for me is a person that's standing still is going to perceive a moment differently than a person that is walking or running or driving in a car.
Correct.
Which I find to be a pretty amazing. Like,
Or
the
moving
differential
really,
there-
really fast. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but the differential between like standing and walking and running isn't that different. But the perception of time and that situation and moment can be tremendously different.
I don't know about
To me, that-
tremendously, but
Well, tremendously different. And when we're talking about physics and the sort of the minuscule or the tiny measurement of space time.
so I mean that's a good segue, I think, to what the next piece that I wanted to talk about. So we talked about some of these psychological factors of this perception of time, but there are actually, as you kind of started to allude to there, some physical, physics factors that also influence your perception of time. So not psychological stuff, like actual physical shit in the world. And one of them is totally your speed, the relative rate of movement that you have. So physics is actually the only science that explicitly studies time, and most physicists agree that it is one of the most difficult properties in the universe to understand. We talked about some of the smart people like Newton and, or I guess, the only person that you care about, Einstein.
That's false.
That's
just making a joke.
that's what you said earlier.
I was just making a joke.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to Newton,
And in all his fakes.
Mr. Fig, and all his figs, Mr. Fig Newton.
But Einstein obviously had his theory of relativity. Do you know what the equation for that was? Do you remember?
That is E equals MC squared.
Correct. That is correct.
I'm not as dumb as I look.
As a result of that, we know that rates of time run differently depending on, again, your relative motion. So time passes at different rates for different observers traveling at different speeds. So like you said, someone standing versus someone in a car, I think the difference would be negligible, but it's definitely different. That's I think inarguable
Well,
based on Einstein's
negligible,
theory.
but I think it's negligible to the human experience, right? But I think
Yeah.
in a physics measurement, it's probably actually quite quantifiable.
I don't know about quite, but I think it's quantifiable. Yes, I would agree.
It's all a perception thing, I guess.
But it's if you definitely, as you get closer to the speed of light, it becomes less and less negligible and more prominent, for sure.
Yeah.
So the faster you're going, the more the difference.
But 40 miles per hour in a car has a difference than sitting somewhere. Like, you don't need to go close to the speed of the light to notice a difference, a measurable difference, I guess. Right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean measurable, yeah, but I don't think the human
of
human
course.
mind is capable of
Maybe-
noticing that.
maybe yours
Difference.
isn't.
Okay, yeah, true. Mine's not. Maybe yours is. Another factor, physical factor besides relative motion is gravitational pull. The closer you are to a large body that has a gravitational field, the slower time is.
Yeah. So the taller you are, the faster you age.
Yeah, or if you live on the second floor of a building, technically you would age faster than someone that lives on the first floor of the building.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking really minute at this type of scale, but you know, if we start to go like to an extreme, if you like think about what does time do as you get towards like a black hole, it's like insane.
Well, time basically stops closer. I think we should probably talk about that later, but time basically stops as you approach a black hole. But
in theory, obviously we've never
in theory, yeah.
proven it.
Again, you haven't been to a black hole, but I mean, we can't speak
But
for
you have.
everybody that's listening. No, we can't speak for everybody that's listening. Don't try to know. But I think as we're talking about negligible amounts of time, there was a scientist that placed 2 atomic clocks on 2 tables and then raised one of the tables 33 centimeters. So 33 centimeters above the other one. After 79 years, it had to be one of the longest scientific studies of all time. After 79 years, they found out that the higher clock was running faster than the lower one at a rate of a 90 billionth of a second. So I mean,
again,
we're talking
very
about
negligible.
yeah, measurable but negligible.
Correct. Yeah, that's where I was saying where you were saying you were putting some quantifier on your measurable that I was disagreeing with. But
Okay. Well, do you know what the concept scientifically is called that we're talking about?
time dilation.
Time. Wow. On my end, you had like a reverb on that or something. It was very like,
Time
like,
dilation.
Yeah, it sounded very strange on my end, but yeah, it's time dilation. For those of you paying attention at home and feel like Googling this, time dilation is the scientific term to which we are speaking.
Another kind of classic theoretical example that some people may have heard of is like the twins. So you have a set of twins, you send one up into a spaceship, and they go up into space for 10 Earth years, and then they come back. The twin that was in the spaceship would have aged less than the twin that stayed on Earth. This is all theoretical. They've actually never done this.
No,
but
that's actually false. They did not a spaceship, but there's 2 astronaut brothers. They're both bald. I don't know. For those of you that have the
the bald astronauts. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, what's that? What's that one? Is it Guess Who? Where you like have, you got to is your astronaut bald? Nope. Okay.
Does he have glasses?
Yeah, no, they don't. Well, they might have glasses, but so
does he have red pubic hair?
No, I mean maybe. I don't know. I don't know what color his natural.
Sorry,
hair
I
is,
thought we were playing astronaut. Guess Who?
We were. We can play that after the episode. So do you remember that lady, congresswoman back in the day that was having like a rally and she got shot? And she was one of like the first it was one of like the first big like public shootings where it became like a whole big thing with gun control and everything.
No.
Her name, the congresswoman, for those paying attention at home, is Gabby Gifford. So she was holding, I think she's from Arizona, maybe, but her husband, I think, is Scott Kelly.
Yeah, he's
one
an
of the Kellys.
astronaut. Yeah.
Scott Kelly or Mark Kelly. They're both astronauts. Astronaut brother twins, both bald. Kind of look like big wieners, but so one of them goes into space, and this was sort of this is our way of our human way of testing this. That what you just talked about was sending somebody up into a spaceship. They actually did this where one brother stayed on Earth. The other one stayed up in the space station for like a year, I think, and then came back down. And there was, again, not significant difference, but definitely a measurable difference in the way that they age. Their bone density, sort of a lot of different. I don't know exactly what it was, but a lot of different sort of data points that showed like the guy up in space versus the guy on the ground. They were definitely aging differently. Which is, I think, is pretty much the only test that we're able to perform right now.
Yeah, I mean, so that's exactly kind of what we're talking about. These two kind of physical effects. I mean, space is usually where they both come into play between speed and gravitational pull. But obviously, they both can occur at the same time. The speed and gravitational impacts relative to your perception of time. So, like, if you combine those two things, speed and gravity. You know, we talked a little bit about black holes, and that's where you can start to get into some theoretical concepts and of actual like time travel. Being able to move through time in some way. Usually, those types of theories are going to stem most of the time from these types of concepts that we're talking about here. How time is moving differently when you're going really fast or near a large gravity force.
That was a dying thought you had there.
So, do you think that we will be able to travel through time at any point?
Is this question encompassing both forward and backwards?
Sure. Any sort of like, and I'm not talking like what. So, I mean, you could argue that what we just kind of talked about is time travel in a way that you were up in space. This guy was up in space for a year. He aged less, so technically, he kind of came back and he was in the future relative to where he would have been. But I'm not talking about that type of thing. So I'm talking like actual making a significant change in time, either backward or forward. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think it would start with going forward in time. I think that would be a more feasible a feasible time travel than it would be to go back in time. I think there's a lot more complications when you go back comparatively to forward.
Agree. Yeah, I mean, so I think obviously time travel is a huge subject for science fiction, and it's really interesting. But like you said, if you're talking about going back in time, there's all kinds of problems and paradoxical situations that could arise that just kind of, again, hurts your brain to think about too much, at least in my opinion.
But in theory, I mean, if you do believe in time travel or the potential for time travel, then you're probably in a school of thought of some sort of multiverse or dimensional type structure of the universe, in which case, most of the time, I think neither the past nor the present is ever like it doesn't. There's no differentiation. Basically, it's everything exists sort of on the same sort of plane, I guess. So in theory, it shouldn't be any harder to go backwards outside of like obviously the complications with the grandfather paradox or whatever it is and all of that stuff. But essentially, if you can go one way, you should be able to go scientifically. You should be able to go either way equally as feasible. I don't think the complications from a morality or a humanistic perspective are as fierce going into the future as they are going backwards.
Yeah.
As you talked about. But in theory, I think that if you can time travel, then you should be able to go either way.
So do you think that if we could time travel that we should go back in time?
I don't believe there's a lot of... Have you watched Travelers on Netflix?
I have watched not this newest season that just came out. Not sponsored by Netflix or Travelers, but I haven't seen that one, and I think I've only seen like half of season 2 maybe.
Okay, I haven't even seen half of season 2 yet, but I think that is one of the situations where you would go back in time, where if you were part of a world where the devastation of the previous civilization or the previous humanity or something has complicated your current living. I don't think we have any. There hasn't been a huge. I mean, there obviously has been huge famine, or an atom bomb dropped on a country. But as far as the totality of humanity goes, I don't think there has been an instance where we need to go back in time to prevent that. But if there was a massive sort of famine or mass event that wiped out a large percentage of humanity, then yes, I do believe that sort of qualifies us to go back in time.
Depending on who you talk to, we are in that situation with climate change.
But we wouldn't be I don't feel, to that point, I don't feel like we would be the ones going back in time to fix it. I feel like generations from now, hundreds of years from now, would be the people that would come back and say, let's fix these fucking donkeys. Let's go back to 1910, whenever the fuck this all started, and fix climate change. I don't think I don't think our current climate situation would qualify us to have a reason to go back in time and change something, because we don't even know, we can't even peg anything down on climate change right now.
Okay.
But I don't think that is a big enough event to qualify to go in the past.
You want to be closer to that extinction event before you.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think that makes sense? Because you're talking about, you're not going back in time and like you don't want to do like the freaking like Back to the Future thing where you mess with your fucking parents and one person is affected.
Yeah, no,
right?
Going back in the future, going back in time theoretically has serious ramifications. So yeah, shouldn't be done lightly, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, but going into the future, I really can't think of a lot of ramifications from that, especially on a large scale.
Unless you're doing like the Back to the Future again scenario where he went forward, got like the sports almanac, brought it back with him, and then he like had all this knowledge of the future that he could then influence. Or we're kind of getting off the rails here on different stuff. But one more question on time travel that I had for you is, so if you could go back in time without any ramifications, theoretically, just as like a observer, just for a visit, where would you go, or when would you go, and why?
This is going to get really deep and sad, but I think I'd go back and spend a few more hours with my dad before he died.
Okay.
I mean,
sorry,
I think
sorry, man,
I
didn't mean to.
No, I didn't. I mean, I quickly thinking about that situation, I don't feel like there's anything in my life in particular that I'd want to go back to, and I don't think there's really anything that I would need to go back to do anything with. It goes back to what would I, measly old Chase, go back in time and try to fix World War II? No, I mean, there's nothing that I don't think I could. I don't even know enough about World War II to go back and say, okay, if I did.
No, and I'm saying just observe anyway. You can't. Theoretically, you can't change anything. You can't screw anything up. It's just like an experience is all I was asking.
Yeah. No, I think it, I mean, that was by far, I feel like, and I'd love to ask you that question too, but in my opinion, I feel like you'd want to go back to a personal thing, right? Like, I don't think there's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
But when you were younger, like, there wasn't anything that happened to you when you were younger that you don't necessarily, like, remember now that you would want to go back to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were going to ask me, which you said you were going to, but I guess technically you did.
No, please go, because that was a real downer what I just did. So.
I would ask, can I bring someone with me on this theoretical event?
Sure. I mean, the technology is there where you can go. There's no it's not limited to one person.
So then what I would do is I would take my son, Oliver, back to like see some dinosaurs. I think that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Because he's really into dinosaurs. I mean, that would probably be what I would do if I could.
Yeah. See, that's nice. That's way less of a downer than what my answer was.
Yeah, sorry, man. I guess I didn't think that one through all the way. So apologies.
No, it's not. I mean, but to me, and that's a valid thing as well, though. But like, you're not going. Like, I think a lot of answers would be like, I'd like to go see the Declaration signed, or like, I'd like to go see like the stand with Kennedy when the man landed on the moon, or something like that. Like, I think those situations would be cool, but for me, it would be wasted. Like, there are several things in my life that I think I would like to go back to, that or like it's an experience for you. Like, I think that varies depending on the person, for sure. You would go back to show your son real life fucking dinosaurs, and that doesn't have any, like, you could go back to so many things. To me, I think it just becomes a lot more personal when you have the ability to do that. And that was where my answer came from. But sorry for everybody listening that is in a bad mood now.
You wouldn't want to go back to Dallas, Texas in 1963 and actually see what happened to Kennedy, JFK?
No, because I honestly don't care that much.
We could do a whole nother episode on it if you went back and found out.
Could, yeah. Well, I think we have several seasons worth of topics if one of us discovers the ability to go back in time. Okay, where do we go now? Let's move on, because sorry, I honestly didn't mean to bring it down, but that was literally like this wave of emotion just sort of came over me. That's not like me. That is not, I'm dead inside for the most part. On a separate note, bringing this episode back up to speed. Do you want to hear some mind-boggling facts about time.
I suppose we have time for that.
If you flew to the star Sirius,
That was a joke, man. Come on.
oh, see, your jokes get your jokes get lost. I'm sorry. That was
Too subtle?
that was cheat. No, I got. This is the shirt that I have on. That was one of those.
Dad joke supplier. Yeah, I need to get one of
Yeah.
those.
That was one of those, man. If you flew to the star Sirius at 99% of the speed of light, then flew back again, the people that you left behind on Earth would have aged more than 17 years, but you would have aged less than 2.5 years.
Yeah, and I think I saw something like on this one. So, I mean, that's all again about the time dilation and speed.
It's fucking mind blowing.
Yeah, because you said 99% the speed of light.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
99% the speed of light. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just insane to think about. You would have actually had to have experienced those 17 years, though, right? I mean, because it takes, if you're going like essentially the speed of light, and it takes you 17. This shit just hurts my brain too much to think.
I
about.
know. I'm literally trying to think of like Inception or not Inception, Interstellar, the Chris Nolan movie.
Yeah.
Which I think scientists agree like was the most accurate depiction of what would happen if we actually did interstellar travel. And I'm trying to think of how that happened because I don't think they experienced 17 years or whatever the example is. I don't think they experienced 17 years when they were traveling in space through the black hole or on the black hole or whatever the fuck it was. But I feel like when they didn't really notice the time difference until they came back in Earth or whatever the fuck it was. I barely remember the movie now, but I feel like they didn't realize how long they had been gone. They knew in their heads like, oh, this is going to be 17 years, but they didn't actually like experience those 17 years. I don't know. Look, there was an episode we talked about Sasquatch last time. Like, who are we to try to figure out the math of all of this?
You talked about Interstellar, a movie. There's another movie that when we talked about doing this episode that immediately came to mind to me, and it was not a good movie, but I think like the concept of it was so cool. It was called In Time. Do you know this movie?
No,
It had
I don't know that
Justin Timberlake in it.
I watched Trolls a lot. With,
No, not
with
that one.
Ellie, that has
But
Justin
essentially,
Timberlake
like there
in it.
was this. The concept of it was like time was this like resource, like money, essentially, and so like you could like change, you could like bet it, buy stuff with it. You could.
Did they have like something in their arms or something?
You could like basically live forever if you could accumulate enough time. The people that were like poor, quote unquote, were the ones that like didn't have a lot of time left. They were about to die. So when you ran out of time, you died. So, there's whole concept of like gambling, not with money, but like with time and like able to like extend your life essentially. Like I thought the concept was really, really cool. The movie was not that great, but the concept of it I thought was.
Yeah, and I think that's a general consensus of a lot of like time concept movies is like a really cool fucking concept, and probably like the future movies as a whole. Like really cool concepts, but poorly executed in movies, which is always disappointing because they always read so well and like the synopsis, like, oh, this is gonna be sweet, and then it's like fucking like Dennis Quaid like as an astronaut in space, and they didn't do any math or figure out how it's actually gonna happen. It's just like him and a rocket ship. But yeah, I do vaguely remember that movie. Hopefully, it's not a Shazam moment where that movie actually existed.
It does.
And,
It does. Exist,
okay. Yeah, I think I remember a little bit of that movie. Do you know how long, and I think you do, or you have a general idea, because this is, I think, a pretty well studied thing as you move up through elementary school and middle school. Do you know how long it takes the sun's light to get to us?
Exactly? No.
I'll give you like a 30-second
30 seconds.
over under.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, that's quite a bit of leeway. A few minutes.
Well,
like
what is, I guess, talking about time, what
no.
is your definition of a few minutes?
I'll say 9 minutes.
Oh, see? You almost got the 30-second window. It's 8 minutes and 20 seconds.
Oh my god.
So
40
look,
seconds off.
I
man.
was a bit too generous with my over under, but what you are seeing from the sun is 8 minutes and 20 seconds old. So technically, when the sun blows up, we won't know for another 8 minutes and 20 seconds, and then we'll die.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen
And
in real time. And I think
that concept is like even more extreme if you like take it to like stars and shit.
yeah,
that are
so
even farther out. Yeah.
The next one is Proxima Centauri, which is the nearest star to us. Do you want to take a guess? 30 seconds, over under how long it? I'm just kidding.
How many light years away is it?
It's not light years.
It's not even light years.
It doesn't say light years, but I'm assuming if it is light and it takes years, doesn't that qualify as light years?
A light year is the distance a light can travel in a year at the speed of light.
So that's what it is then. It's light years. I mean, that makes sense, I guess. But it is 4 years old. So when you're seeing, and that's our closest star.
It's four light years away.
4 light years, yeah. And then, I mean, if you think about like, and you always hear this too, like if you're looking through a telescope and like you're looking at a planet or somebody else is looking down at Earth, like they could still see the dinosaurs. You know, that's how long it takes for shit to travel from far planet to far planet. Is like if there was a far off, you know, fucking planet that was looking at us and saying, oh, what are these, what is this planet? They could still potentially see the dinosaurs because that's how long it's taking.
Yeah, that's like
for the light to travel. It's such a fucking crazy concept. It just the planets that we're looking at through telescopes are not even the light that is happening. Like the whole thing just boggles the mind, man. It's an amazing concept.
I have another one. It's not a space one, but it's another time one and kind of like just scale of numbers type of thing. But so the universe by some accounts is 13.8 billion years old. Okay, give or take.
Okay.
So if you compressed that time into 1 year, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Big Bang happens at, January 1st at 1 second on the beginning of that year. The very first second, starting the year.
Yep.
Right as soon as the ball drops, Big Bang, okay? The dinosaurs would be wiped out on December 29th of that year. Basically, so much time, like the entire existence almost is happening between the Big Bang and that point.
Yeah.
Modern humans would appear at 11:54 p.m. on December 31st. And Christopher Columbus would sail across the Atlantic 1 second before midnight.
Yeah, that's like that graphic that you always see where like it's like the Big Bang and then dinosaurs, right? It's like a foot long on a piece of paper, and then like everything else is like a centimeter long. Like
Exactly.
everything else just happened. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's so strange.
It's just crazy to think about some of that shit, man. I just like the physicists and crap that spend all their time thinking about, like Stephen Hawking, when he was thinking about this stuff, like it just boggles my mind how you could spend all your time thinking about that shit.
Well, and here's the thing though, Adam. Like you didn't do all this stuff. That would be a blatant lie on my part. But you were way smart in high school. Like you did a lot of this sciencey stuff. I was a shitbag in high school and didn't really do much of anything. But like I never took calculus. I never took pre-calc. I was in like the remediation classes. But like so if you can't figure this shit out. And like, if this stuff boggles your mind, just think of what happens in my mind when I try to actually like think through this stuff. Like, to me, it just it is so far beyond my knowledge base to even like try to even conceptually, like even on like a 10,000 foot level of what Stephen Hawking did in one day, or like Einstein did in one, like the shit that he thinks about it isn't even incomprehensible in my mind. Like in 1 hour, whatever they were thinking about how to process time or what time is or how fast you need to go back in time. Like I'm thinking about like there's leftover spaghetti in the fridge. At what time can I eat that?
Gross.
Like that's what I'm thinking about. Like, come on, you're not a fan of leftovers?
No, absolutely not.
You should have seen the giant bowl of spaghetti that I ate at 10:30 this morning for my quote unquote lunch. It was just marvelous. It was gross, but I mean, it was gross to look at, I'm sure, but marvelous for me. But to me, like the shit that I am going to think about for my entire life, Adam, the shit that I'm going to do is going to be not even a comparison to the 2 days in January that Einstein lived.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure,
it's
sure.
it's a Tuesday, Wednesday for him.
So yeah, I mean, this topic is just really really cool, I think. But I mean, it again hurts your brain if you think about it too much. So if you don't have anything to do, you want to give yourself a headache. I mean, really start trying to understand some of this stuff, in my opinion. But how do you wrap it up on your end relative to time? I think it's time for us to wrap it up.
Ooh. See, that one landed. That one landed.
You were ready for
I feel
it.
you. I feel what you're throwing down there. Yeah. I mean, to me, this is one of our more like philosophical type episodes. I think where you sort of sit back and think about how you perceive time. And for me, like, again, as I said in the beginning of the episode, for me, like when I had my daughter, time was one of those things that I was like, okay, well, up until this point, it was money, right? You can have as much money as you want. And then you start to realize as you get older, I think, that time fucking sucks and that you're going to run out of it. And that's you can't redo it. You can get more money, you can get less money. Who the fuck cares? Time is one of those things that you're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to move on. And you can't get it back until we invent something cool that you can, unless you're in that Justin Timberlake movie.
Exactly. Just go to the Justin Timberlake movie.
But yeah, to me, I mean, it's one of those things that I can't think about too hard, as you said, because I would literally just like start to slobber. But it's something that we should all be very much in the forefront of thinking about on a day-to-day basis as to how we perceive time, what time is, and how we're dealing with our time.
No, I think that's well said. I guess for me, I'll say, again, with the cause of the week that we're starting up, this week's cause is Alzheimer's research. So if you want to help us support the Alzheimer's Association, you can join us on Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/STFtalk. You can check out Alzheimer's Association at alz.org if you want to donate directly as well. But that's the cause of the week related to time.
Yeah, and I honestly, like, to that note too, like, I cannot imagine. I've been blackout drunk, so I can imagine, I guess, periods of time where you just don't remember. And Alzheimer's has to be just tremendously debilitating when it comes to just... I can't even imagine. So I for this to be our first one, I'm sort of proud for us to be doing this, and hopefully we can donate to a lot of good causes along the way as well. But for me, I think this is a cool topic to tie in with Alzheimer's, and hopefully be one of the cogs in the many donations to this organization and many more for a lot of different a lot of different things, I guess.
So also, I guess, and so my final kind of thought, I guess, is that we're approaching New Year's here for us on the calendar, and a lot of people are making New Year's resolutions and vowing to make better use of their time.
Hey, we're going to release this after the first of the year. Just so
I know. So New Year's just passed. We're recording it before New Year's, but either way, people are still entrenched in their New Year's resolutions, many of which deal with making better use of their time than they did last year. Again, research seems to support that if you want your time to not feel like it's going by so quickly, try, learn, and experience new things. So I suggest you spread that word, tell your friends about this concept, particularly as it relates to new and interesting podcasts like ours. Right?
Good
know?
loop back, yeah.
So yeah, I thought I would throw that one out there.
But there was a weird analogy, something. And speaking back of Travelers on Netflix, not a sponsor. There was a quote in season 1 that they used when the guy's like, he's like growing a heart inside of his body, and he's the oldest traveler. But he said, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the whole goddamn thing, but it's basically like time is like throwing a boulder into a stream. You can throw it into the stream, and the water will divert. The stream will divert. Or never mind. We could try to. It's something about the boulder is sitting there. The stream will divert and just continue on, and that is time. You can't stop it. The stream is time, and you can do whatever you want to try and stop it, but it's just going to continue on.
But what if you build a dam? Thanks a lot for listening. Stranger Than Fiction is the brainchild of Chase Ferris, Allison Davila, and me, Adam Davila. we would love to hear from you on one of our social media accounts. You can find us at Stranger Than Fiction Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, or at STF Talk on Twitter, or check out our website, stftalk.com.